So in our previous lesson, we began our review on systems of linear equations. And today's going to be a continuation of that topic, but with a focus on word problems. In most of the problems we did in practice in our last lesson, we were already given the system of equations. But there are going to be a lot of times on the SAT when we are given a word problem, and we are going to have to construct the system ourselves based on information given to us in the problem. And so that's what we're going to spend most of our time today practicing. You'll see there's a problem on the screen. This is how we're going to formulate our lesson for today. And so we read that we have $1.55 in dimes and nickels in a jar. And there are 23 coins in total. And ultimately, we're trying to answer how many dimes do we have and how many nickels do we have. The first thing we will do for every single word problem we come across is define our variables. The variables are what piece our system together. They're what cause our system to have meaning. And so it's super important that we focus and start by defining our variables. Now, the nice thing about these word problems is that we are able to pick out our variables from the last line of our problem or from the question 99% of the time. And so again, in this problem, we read that the question we are trying to answer is how many dimes do we have, as well as how many nickels do we have. And so I'm going to pull my variables from there. I know ultimately I'm trying to find a variable D that represents the number or quantity of dimes. And I'm trying to find a variable N that represents the number of nickels. Now, when it comes to trying to construct our system, what we're looking for is to come up with two different equations that relate our two variables together. And we're going to find information and context for those equations in our problem. And that's where we come to annotation, which is a super important skill when it comes to doing these word problems. And so I'm going to read this problem in a little bit more depth again and really annotate information that's going to be helpful for me. And so the first sentence again tells us that we have $1.55 in dimes and nickels in a jar. The reason this number stands out to me is because when I see $1.55, it is relating the number of dimes and nickels we have in terms of value or in terms of money. And so that's going to set the context for one of our equations. I'll continue on. Next sentence, there are 23 coins in total. I'm going to put a circle around this number. Reason being, I recognize that this number is not relating our variables in terms of value or in terms of money, but this number is relating our variables in terms of quantity, or literally in terms of coins. And so I recognize that that's going to help set the context for our second equation. Now that's all the information that's given, so that's what we're going to work with here. Our first equation, again, I'll put a box around it so that I know that I'm looking for all information in my problem that I put a box around. That tells me that that information is relating my variables in terms of value. And that $1.55 in our problem is our total value of all of our coins. And so I'm going to set that on the right side of our equal sign, on the other side for where our variables are going to be. Now, when I think about trying to relate these variables to value, I like to think about a simple example like, say I have 4 dimes in my pocket and I'm curious how much money I have. A way I might think about trying to figure that out is, okay, I have 4 dimes. I know that each dime is worth 10 cents. And so 10 cents times 4 dimes is equal to 40 cents. And that's how much money I have. The same logic goes into this part of trying to set up our equation. We know that dimes are worth 10 cents. And when we multiply 10 cents times our number of dimes, that's going to give us the total value that our dimes are adding to our total collection of coins in our jar, which is 155. Same thing, a nickel's worth 5 cents. And so 0.05 times n is going to give us the total value that our nickels are adding. And so that's our first equation. I love it. Moving on to the second equation. Put a circle around this so I know I'm looking for all information that is relating our variables together in terms of quantity or number of coins. Again, the number that's given to us in the problem is 23, and that is the total amount of coins. And so something in reference to our variables is going to give us 23 total coins. Now, we know that the number of dimes we have plus the number of nickels we have is going to give us that total number of 23. And so our second equation is as simple as d plus n. Now, since we worked on solving systems yesterday, I'm not going to worry about having you guys solve it. You can see my work here on the screen, and I ended up getting n equal to 15 and d equal to 8. Now, we're not going to stop there because we haven't actually put our answers into the context of the problem. If someone comes up to you and asks, oh, how many dimes do you have? You're not going to say, oh, d equals 8. Like, that means nothing. D equals 8 means nothing in terms of this problem, so we have to make it mean something. And so, lucky for us, we defined our variables at the beginning of the problem, and so it's really easy for us to put this back in the context of the problem. And so we can say we have, see, d equals 8, and 8, or d is the number of dimes, so we have 8 dimes and 15 nickels. And this is going to be our answer.